Okay, perfect.
All right.
So good morning, everybody. As Eric just said, he is going to record I'm not going to take attendance or anything and check in just because that will get a little clunky. But for those that are not here today, it will be saved and we'll be able to share that with those to watch it later. So Eric is a week old today. And thank you, Eric, for all your hard work and everybody and all your patience. Pam was not able to join. She had a conflicting meeting, so she just asked me to welcome everybody and thank everybody for being on. And as Eric said, he's going to walk through the system, and then we'll have an opportunity for questions and answers. And continuing to send your wishes and things that are not immediate needs on to Celine and I through your program manager would be fantastic to do that. Celine is going to go on vacation for a little bit. Yay, much deserved, Celine. So I will continue to gather all of those things and send on things to Eric that need immediate attention, and then hold off on things that we can work on later. So I just wanted to turn it over to Eric now, and I'll hear if you need me.
All right. Thank you, Mary Lynn. So I'm going to mute everybody now. Okay, so I'm actually recording this, so like she said, we'll be able to share this. So again, thank you for any of your patience thus far. This is a pretty massive system, as you guys probably know, and we had a pretty tight timeline to come up with it. And we're still technically in development. We have a couple forms that we're actually working on right now that came up yesterday and a couple of days before that. The ASQ SE is a report that Mary Lynn gave to me. There was some confusion about the ASQ versus the ASQ SE, and that should be done by the end of the day. And what I'll do at the end of that is actually run through and schedule that assessment tool for everybody that's already enrolled and has a date of birth. So you guys won't have to do any re-enrollment of anybody or anything like that. And then the other one is the family safety plan. There's a kind of a new version of it in development. So we're debating between putting the old version up or just waiting and doing the new version. We're going to be looking at that today, and I'll have some more details on that, and I'm hoping by next week we can have something at least up for you guys to start documenting those. I talked to Pam about this. You know, if there's stuff like this that you always document on that you just haven't, that's not in the system yet, please just keep like a file of things that we can go backfill in later. Like I've kind of communicated to some of you is that the assessments that we brought over, we're really not bringing any assessment tools over. We're bringing over basic demographic information, family information. We brought over the goals. We've brought over just basic visit dates and visit statuses and things like that. So, any assessments that exist in the old system exist in the old system. Any assessments or tools in the new system are in the new system. So with that, let me just kind of do a brief intro on the login process, which I think you've all probably logged in at this point. We had a couple of problems with people resetting passwords, and I think we've worked through most of those. One thing that we ran into with a couple of people was that when they were logging in, and you also know your login, it's your email address. When they were logging in, the password was auto-filling itself. And we think that what was actually happening is that the password was auto-filling with a bad password. So if it seems like that's happening too, shoot me an email and I'll give you some instructions on what you can change to turn that off for the site. So when you log in, this is where you log in at https://mainfamilies.net, and it'll greet you in the morning, good morning, welcome to Erin. And it'll greet you at night, it'll say good evening, and then at like 2 in the morning, it'll tell you to go to bed. There's the forgot password process here. Let me just run through that quick because I think that might have been a confusion point for a couple people. When you do forgot your password, you'll type in your email here. And then you'll hit reset my password. And you should get an email within like a few seconds, like 30 seconds max. If you don't, check your spam. We had a couple people that did that process and they said, I'm not getting the email, and we found that it was actually stuck in spam. So talk to if you have an IT person locally that might be able to help you with that. Some of you do, some of you don't, I think. So if you know somebody that can help you with that, just if you know where the spam is, check that. So when you actually do that, you get a message saying you get a password retrieval email sent. So then when you actually open this email, you'll see you'll get a 6-digit code and a link. And make sure you click this link to go into it, because we had some people that took this code and then tried to log in with that as their password, and that's not how it works. You want to actually click this retrieve code link. And then you're going to come to this page, and you're going to put in your email address, your 6-digit code, and then your new password. And it will not let you use, I believe, the last 2 or 3 passwords. I can't remember exactly. You'll have to use different ones. And your account will reset every 90 days. So you'll have to redo a password every 90 days. That's just a HIPAA thing. It's kind of a best practice, so we built that in. So I'm going to do my password now. And you need to, and with the password, it needs to be at least 10 characters. You need to have an uppercase letter, at least 1 uppercase letter. You can have as many lowercase as you want. You can have 10 uppercase letters if you want. You need to have a number, just 1 number. You need to have a symbol. And I believe the symbols are star, exclamation point, @ pound. There's a couple others, but if you don't match that, it'll actually tell you the list of the options. Most people use like pound signs or exclamation points or stars. Those all should work. If you have a problem with that and it's coming back and telling you, hey, that password doesn't have this, and it does, let me know, because it may be there's a little something in there I need to tweak. So I'm going to do my password here. And then when I hit reset my password, it brings me back, says it's been reset. So now I'm going to use my new password. And now I'm in the system. So now this user account that I'm logged in as is an actual family visitor account. So oh no, that's not true. This is actually an agency administrator account. So I can actually see the different family visitors. So I have this family visitor called family visitor. And then I have a visitor named Eric Dingles. And so this is actually an agency administrator account. So what I'm actually going to do is go in as a different account. So if you come to this menu up here, you'll notice this is different for agency administrators versus family visitors. Agency administrators, as I'm logged in now, have a lot more options, like the agency families, measures, which is in development, referral agencies. You can actually set up that custom list of referral agencies specific to your agency. So what I'm actually going to do is log out here, and I'm going to log in as a different user. Just give me 1 second. So I'm going to go in as, okay. Let's see if I can remember what this password is. Nope. All right, I'm just going to reset. I have different email accounts set up, as you can see. So I'm just demoing again for you the process here. Oh, jeez. Sorry, I'm not having a rough time today. There we go. So now I'm actually logged in as a family visitor, and you notice that there's not that data piece that you saw down here, which has the family visitor names. The reason being, you only see your caseload. So if you're an agency administrator, like let's say Ruth Burke, she can see all the people in all the families in her agency, and she can actually see which visitors are assigned to those. If you're an actual family visitor, you just see your specific caseload. So these are families that have been directly assigned to you. And over the last few days, we've worked through, some people said, oh, I transferred this family, last week, and it didn't catch in the migration. And, I can move a family around to any visitors or agencies. If you find any of those are wrong, just let me know. That's part of just the cleanup process with this migration. So when you get to your family visit screen, you can actually use this search here. This is one of my favorite features of the whole system. You can actually search by any different pieces of data. You can actually search by the name. If you type in juice, you can search by the ID number. So this one's the Sting family, as in Sting and the Police family. you can search by family member names. So if I were to click the Sting family here, let's see, we're going to search for I just type Genevieve, but Genevieve. So if I were to actually type Genevieve, it would actually filter down. So you don't see the name here, but there's a family member with that name. So if you were looking for a Larry, I don't know if you'd ever search by somebody's first name, probably not, but you can actually search by that as well. You can search by different things, like if you want to see who's not enrolled, you can actually type in the word enroll, and it'll filter down to anybody that hasn't been enrolled. Just to kind of explain the difference between the enroll and the migrated enroll, they're really the same thing. The difference between those two is that if they're a migrated enroll, which means they have a legacy ID. So you notice up here, this Apple family 10283, their legacy ID, which is the ID from the old EPER system, is 9999999, or too many nines, but so because they're a legacy family, we do have this migrated enroll button. And what that does is it creates assessments just from this day forward that are due, and by assessments, I mean tools. We use that kind of interchangeably, tools and assessments. It creates an assessment schedule from this day forward based on the schedule that we created globally for the whole company. And that schedule is completely based on that crazy big Excel spreadsheet that you guys developed over the years that has all the timing of things. There's a couple of things we're still tweaking in there, and we'll let you know about that as we do it. But really, it makes that suggestion of these are the tools and assessments that need to be done based on certain factors. So like the ASQ tools and assessments are based on the adjusted birth date if they're premature, just as an example. There's really kind of an algorithm there to how it creates that. So really the only difference between these buttons, the enroll is for a family that's been added new to the system that's only in Erin. Migrated enroll is for a family that migrated over from the old system, and we're only going to create tools and assessments from this day forward. So we're not going to create any like ASQs or bursts or things like that happened in the old system. We're just going to create the stuff that needs to be done in the future. And you guys will still have access to the data in the old system. We're not taking that away. We're kind of working through an issue with Hornby Zeller right now about reporting that I'm hoping we can resolve by the weekend. But that system will still be available to you. And if you guys ever need to get to the old system, if you come up to the menu and go to resources, there's actually a link right here that will bring you to the legacy version of the system. And in the resources, while I'm here, this is really just printable documents of a lot of your forms and things like that. So if you find something's missing from there, let Celine and Mary Lynn and Pam know and we can add it. Or if you come up with some sort of cool like how-to on something that you figured out that maybe we hadn't documented yet, send it to me and I can put it out here. If we can, if it helps other people, you know, this is kind of a community resource sort of a thing. So I'm going to go back to the home screen, and with this menu, you have a couple options. You can actually click here and go to home. Alternatively, you can click, which one is that? Yeah, there it is. You can, on most pages, I just noticed that didn't work on that page. I'll have to fix that one. You can click the little tree here and it'll bring you home. So let's say you're in here. You click the little tree and it'll bring you home. That's just kind of a shortcut. It's just some other things in the menu while we're looking through that. The missing data report. I think a lot of you have used this in the migration to figure out what's missing. So this will actually break down the families and the people in the families and any kind of demographic information that's missing. And there's not any here, but if there's any visits that are uncompleted and more than 4 days old, you'll see those here. And I'll show you what we mean by completed when I get to the visit screen. But completed means all the documentation on the visit has been done. We've met all the required fields. So we'll show you that later. And you can actually do a search here as well. All of our searches work the same way, that it's kind of an intelligent search. As you start typing, it'll just filter down automatically. You don't have to like hit a button or anything. It's real time. And with a lot of these, you can actually click and it'll bring you to like the basic family info as an example, or it'll actually bring you to like the actual person. So in this family, in the Wolfman family, there's a little wolf. So it brought us right to them, and you can actually modify them directly here. So other things in here, change password, which is basically the exact same thing we already showed you, the change password process. Sign out. When you're logging out of the system, it's just best practice to sign out. If you close your browser completely, it performs the same thing. But we put this here. It's really for people that might be switching between accounts. So some people might have multiple accounts, like somebody like a Mary Lynn or a Pam. So I recommend doing that just as a best practice, but technically don't have to. Closed families is actually not, that's just for agency administrators. So that actually shouldn't be there. I'm going to put that on my list here. And at any point that we're going through here that I need to add something to my list. Where's my list? I got too many files here. There it is. So we also have mileage in here, and this is just very basic. This is a per user thing. So for each actual individual user, they have their own mileage tracking. And all it is you come in here, and it's very similar to the way you had it in the old system. You put in your miles, whether it's direct or indirect. You can do a start and end date and then any notes. It's just, I believe you guys track that. I'm not sure the exact purposes of that. We'll probably expand upon this more in the future. This screen is really kind of a user screen. So there's other things we might put in there that are related more to you as an employee rather than to a family. So we've kind of started that idea here, but it's not completely fleshed out. We have a lot of other things to do first. One other thing up here is the alerts. Some of these alerts are automatic. They'll be created. Like say if a participation agreement's uploaded and signed, a year from then, it'll actually make an alert for you automatically if if a year's gone by. There's a tobacco alert, and I can't exactly speak to that because I just did that. It's kind of in development, but it'll actually check to make sure you've gotten you've at least attempted the tobacco referral on the first visit with the client. Any alerts that show up today will show up here. Any that are in the next 30 days or last 30 days, it kind of buckets them. You can actually create an alert. You can make an alert for yourself, or you could actually make it for any other user in the system. So it's almost kind of like an informal messaging system. It's not like you're going to have a chat back and forth, but if you want to send like a reminder, let's say to the agency administrator, if you're a family visitor, you can actually come in here and say, oh, I want to do one for Ruth Burke. I'm going to just keep using it as an example because I was talking to you earlier today. You could set an alert for Ruth Burke for a particular family, or you could just say it's a general reminder, and you can put the date and then a title and text, and that'll actually pop up on Ruth's alerts when she logs in on that date. So if that date happens to be today, it'll pop up today when she's in the system. And one thing on the alerts, you'll notice if there's a little exclamation point hovering over the alerts, that means there's an alert due today. So you can use that for like reminders for yourself. I think that's probably the best way to do it. So if you set one for yourself, say, what's today's date, 10/6. Say, so I created an alert, and now you notice it has a little exclamation point, and you can actually come down here, and it's just going to give you a reminder of what that is. I'm going to go back to the home screen. So let's see, I've shown you how to search. I've shown you the menu up here. So now we're really getting to the family details. So these are we call them cards. They're almost like little business cards for each family. And this has some functions that work off of it. And there's obviously a lot more functions when you click the family. When you actually click the family name here, it'll bring you to the family dashboard, which is really just this is kind of your landing page for the family. You can do just about anything for a family from here. I think the only thing you can't do from here is add attachments or end services, but we might actually make it so you can do that here as well. I don't see why not. Any of these pop-outs should have X's in the upper corner like I just hit, that you can just close it out. This button here is your family picture. So I'll go through that really quick here. So the family picture is just a screen where you can create a new family picture, a new snapshot, or you can see existing ones. You can see I created a bunch of test ones. If you do a new snapshot, it'll actually pull all the data from your last snapshot that you did. So every time you do a new family picture, it should bring in the previous one you did, and then you can modify it. So you can add extra data to it that maybe things have changed since the last one. In the family picture, some of the fields are drop downs where it's basically like telling you this is the sentence that's going to be printed on the thing. So while pregnant with this child, the caregiver has had no health concerns. And you'll notice it'll actually break down the index children. So this one's a prenatal one. And then it'll break down the primary caregivers. So there's June Juice, who's the mom, the female or date of birth. And then if there's any secondary caregivers that are still part of the family, they will show up here as well. So basically you come through here and you fill out some of these fields. Some of them are like I said, some of them are drop downs. Some of them are narrative fields where you can just fill in text. There's questions about housing and contact information. And we tried to make it so that it like kind of, you're finishing a sentence. So the current living situation, ... is temporary until another option is available. And that's actually how it'll write the sentence in the print version. So it's easier to write that way. There are still some issues with periods, whether you use a period or not. For the most part, don't use periods. There are a couple fields there that still, if you don't put a period, it won't put one. But I'm working through those, so just know that we're kind of working through that still. And I'm just going to fill in some more notes here. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but when you hit save, what it does is it actually saves that visit or that family picture, and then it gives you this narrative, which then you can actually click the print button here. And when you click that, it'll do a much printer-friendlier version of it that you can then print out. You can hit cancel if you don't want to print it. You can also go back to your list of family snapshots to maybe edit it again or add a new one. And you can as you're going through it, if you see things like this, like missing, linked, and current, it'll give you alerts as to like certain data pieces that are missing. So one of the things that we have in there is services for the family. And things like, there's some things that'll pull from a visit. So like income level, family's initial income was this. That's actually reported on the first visit you do for a family in the new system. So you'll be putting that in. It'll actually prompt you that on the visit screen, their initial income. And if you already asked them that, you might have to look in the EFRs to see what that was reported as. But that will actually show up here, and then it'll finish off the sentence with what you responded over on that last screen. So it's kind of it's pulling from different places. So if you find anything in here that's a little funky, just know that this is a work in progress still, and any feedback on it is very helpful. When you're done with a family picture, and let's say you print it and share it with the family, if you click share with family, it'll actually mark this family picture as shared on this date, and it marks that you shared it with them as a user, and that's all behind the scenes. But if you go back here, you'll now notice this one we created on 10/6 was shared on 10/6. So you can actually create a bunch of different family pictures over time, but you don't necessarily have to share all of them. You could just share the newest one. So I know some people use the family picture and they update it every single time. I've heard that. So you can still do that. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. But then when you're ready to share one with the family, then you'd hit that share button. And all it does is really stamp and says, all right, I did this. So that's the family picture. Like I said, it's still a little bit of a work in development. So on people that are not enrolled, again, we're going to see enroll or migrated enroll. And what that does is it creates the list of tools and assessments for the family. If you don't have a date of birth on the kid yet, so if the child hasn't been born yet, it's not going to create those postnatal ones. If you do have a date of birth on the child before you hit that enroll, then it will. So it's kind of dependent on whether it's pre or postnatal. And it should know that. And if you have problems with that, just let me know. But if you actually click in, let's look at this family October here. So if we look at the family, we have an index child and a primary caregiver. It looks like this index child is prenatal, but I don't want to assume that. So if I click that index child, that's the index child, yes. So there's no date of birth here, if you notice that. So this is somebody with an expected due date of 10/31, due on Halloween. Let's say, but I'm just gonna close out of this now. So let's say we enroll them now. And just as a warning, if I get any special errors or anything in here, this is, you guys know that we're in rapid development here, so we'll just be wary of that. So we'll say they enrolled today. And then you'll notice it actually changes. It no longer says enrolled, that they're actually enrolled in the system now. If we come back in here to this child, so if we go to prenatal, who's the index child, and if we click this little wrench, you'll notice none of their tools have been built out yet. So I'm going to go back, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, oh, he was actually prenatal was born. His name is actually Bobby Prenatal. Well, no, actually it'd be October. So for this family member, it's an index child. Now we know it's a boy, so we're going to change that to male. The effective start date, it should autofill that when you create new family members, and when you enroll them. It'll actually, when you enroll a family, it should put in the date that they enrolled, and that start date is really just to tell on a family member level who's still part of the active family. So we have this effective end date, and it's really, if you see here, for household members who are no longer active. So mom has a boyfriend for 6 months. Effective start date might be when he shows up on the scene, and effective end date would be when he's not there anymore. So it's really a purpose to kind of see the snapshot of the family over time, who's actually in the family, who's actually part of the household at certain points in time. And I'll show you what that does in a minute when you put an end date. So we're going to say he was actually born on October 19th. Family members: role, child, ethnicity, race, language, primary language spoken in home, which should really kind of be the same. It'll ask you questions there's certain questions that it'll ask you on children that it won't ask you on adults. And there's certain questions that it'll ask you on index children that it won't ask you on adults. And there's questions that it'll ask you on index children that maybe it doesn't ask you on a non-index child. So if there's like an older brother or sister, there's questions it won't ask. If it's an actual index child, there are questions it will ask that it wouldn't ask on the other kid. So there is some skip logic here, and as you guys will see as we're going through, if you find a field that you say, hey, that it's an index child, but it's asking me if they smoke or not. Like, obviously they don't, you know. If you find something like that doesn't make sense, please float that to like Celine and Mary Lynn and Pam, and we can address that in our next, when we put out a new version. Index child housing situation, just kind of jumping around here. Are they premature? If you said this baby actually was premature, right? Because the due date was 10/31. It was born today, so technically I can't remember the exact cutoff, but we could say that it was 3 weeks premature. I'm not sure if that fits exactly with your technical specifications for premature, but that's why you guys are the experts on that. So we'll put some notes in here. Index child lives with, and this will be any family member, so you can actually pick, say he lives with this family member and this family member, but maybe there's a third family member that doesn't actually live with them, that's in the system, that you could potentially detail that at that level. So I'm going to hit save here, and after I hit save, it closes. And now you notice he's got his name. Oh, there he is, Bobby. So Bobby is the index child, has his name. If we click tools now you'll notice all his assessments have been built. The reason being, these are all postnatal assessments. Now that the child is born, the system knows, okay, now I have a birth date. He doesn't have any tools and assessments built out yet, so I'm going to do it. So it actually goes through and looks at a schedule that we've created. It's the same schedule for everybody. It's based on number of days after date of birth, number of days after enrollment, number of days after the adjusted birth date, number of days, I think those are the three. So it actually creates this list of tools here, and it puts them into these buckets. So these are ones that are overdue. So, you know, if there was one scheduled for 10/5 for some reason, it wouldn't be the case with this child because they were born on 10/6. We could actually schedule one back. Or if one was scheduled, let's say it's 3 weeks from now and you don't do this purple, then this purple will still be here, but it's going to move over to this bucket. So really, this is kind of almost like a prioritization queue. So what you have here is your overdue. These are ones that, okay, you should have done these already, due within 60 days, or ones that are coming up. Then anything that's greater than 60 days will show here, and you'll see it's all the ASQs, the PAT health records. the Piccolo, the Family Safety, the Safe Sleep. And by default, this tools will hide, so you don't have to see all those because they're not really an issue yet. When you, as time goes by and those assessments become closer to due, then they'll move to this bucket. And then after a little while, they'll go to this bucket. So it's really just kind of like a flow to see what's in your inbox and what's not. That's the way I kind of think of it. With any assessments, you have a few options here, and we actually just added a new option the other day. So the first option you have is to delete. And if you delete, it actually completely removes the assessment from the options. And if you do that and you didn't mean to do it, let me know. I'm going to actually add a thing in that when you click delete, it's going to say, are you really, 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 really sure? Because it's going to remove that from the client completely. So as of right now, it just completely removes it. And it's still technically there behind the scenes. So if you do that by accident, don't panic. You can email me and say, hey, I deleted this assessment. I really need it. Especially if you filled out data in it already, I can restore it for you. It's not a big deal. But alternatively, let's say you accidentally deleted one that you hadn't done any work on yet. So you notice on this purple, it says start. So that means you haven't even started this one yet. It means it's a new one. You've never touched it. Once you start it, this start button will change to edit. So let's say we accidentally delete the purple on 10/20/2016, and it's one that hasn't been started yet. Like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. You actually have this over here that you can add an optional assessment, and you can do this on, is it Safe Sleep or Purple? I think it's Safe Sleep. So we can add a custom one due on 10/20/2016, and now it's back. And the only difference is that it'll mark it as a custom one, which means the system didn't auto-generate it, you generated it. And you could do this for any assessments. You can do, let's say we want to have you want to do an Edinburgh because there was some depression detected during a visit, even though previously you hadn't detected that, but you want to do an Edinburgh. So we want to do one on October 10th. Then it's going to add an Edinburgh there. And then you can actually click here and it'll actually start doing the Edinburgh. So it's kind of, there's some different options here. So starting it actually brings you in to create a new one. Once you actually start one, so I'm just going to do one here. So you guys are probably all pretty familiar with the questions in here, so I'm not going to go into too much detail on that. One of the things you'll notice, once you get down to the bottom of the Edinburgh, it actually calculates the score as you're going. And then you'll get that green message saying it was successfully inserted. And because of the score we got there, it actually auto redirects you to referrals. Because it was a higher score, it'll say, it's basically bringing you to a referral, kind of suggesting you should probably make a referral. I'm going to go back here, though. I'm going to refresh the screen. So now you'll see Edinburgh Custom has an edit button now. So the edit button just means you've already started it, and you come back in and all your answers are still there, or should be. If they're not, let me know. So the edit is really saying, okay, I want to go back and I want to add some more details to it. Maybe you want to add some notes after you originally did the Edinburgh or something. I don't know. There's a done button here, and there's a decline button. So let's say you go to do an Edinburgh with the mom, and you're like, I want to do an Edinburgh because I just sensed some depression issues here or whatever. And you could say, could we do this Edinburgh screening with you? You could actually mark decline. And what you see is it actually goes away, but it still keeps it. It's still there. It's indicated that they did decline it, so there's a record of that, but it's not, you still could technically fill it out. Let's say they come back and say, oh, I actually do want to do that. You could still come in here and do that. Done. Think of done as moving it from your inbox to your outbox. Like, okay, I did everything that's required in this assessment. I did the safe sleep. I filled out all my data. As you're filling out the data, it'll come back and tell you you're missing this field and that field and this field and that field. But when you're actually like really done with it, you hit done, and all it's doing is moving it to almost like it's almost like a filing cabinet, right? Like you have these items that you need to take care of. You document them, like, all right, I don't want to keep seeing that anymore. You click done, and it's still there. All the data's still there. What was that? Okay, is there a problem with that one? Let's see. All right, I'll have to check that. Let me put it in my notes. And again, like I said, you can add an optional assessment at any time. And the ASQ SE is one that I just mentioned we're actually in development for. It should be, I think it'll be out by the end of the day. You know, I'll have everybody let you know when that's ready. Just as a preview here, it's the ASQ SE. You put the scores in. You can see Josh is actually working on this right now. You can select multi-selects. When you're, just as a note for the multi-selects, I put a note here. It's a little different on Macs versus PCs. I know some of you have Macs and some have PCs, and some have tablets. So it's a little different on each. When you're going to multi-select, let's say you want to pick this one and this one. I have a PC, so I'm holding the control key and then clicking. And then you can also control unclick. So control click again, unclicks. And you can do it for certain ones, and it basically creates a list of which ones you selected and which ones you didn't. On a Mac, you hit the command button and then click. So it's like there's a little thing in the lower left-hand corner of your keyboard. I think it says CMD on some of them. And it'll have like a little like icon. It's a command button. That is what you'll hold and then click when you're doing that on a Mac. Let's see. So again, I just did an ASQ SE. I'm going to go in and edit it. And there's all my data. These are the fields I selected. I can X out to close it. Let me just show you a couple other quick assessments here. So the PAT health record, there's the Piccolo. Let's do a Piccolo. It's a short one. Piccolo completed, date. There's some discussion about expanding this a bit. We're still working through that. So now if we come back down, our Piccolo now says edit. Let's say we're done. Then our Piccolo now comes over here. It's still there. The data's still there. It's a filing cabinet. It's moving it like out of your queue almost. Maybe this is a queue or a filing cabinet. So let's go back home now. Remember, you can hit the tree to go back home. Let's just go a little more into this page. So attachments. You can do attachments on families at any point. It doesn't matter if they're enrolled or not. Attachments would be, maybe you have some anything you want to add, like a letter or a note or anything like that. The only requirement of the attachments is that it's a PDF. So if you have a scanner available, anything you want to put in here, just scan it. I know some people have been experimenting with their cameras, being able to take a picture of something and then turn it to a PDF. If anybody figures out a really slick way to do that, let me know. I'd like to share it with everybody if it saves people some headaches. So when you're on an attachment for a family, you choose the file to attach. And again, it's going to look for a PDF. I'm going to do this. This is a how-to on how to transfer a family. So then it says it's ready to attach. I'm going to say, you can say it's a participation agreement or a release. Let's say this is a participation agreement and who had assigned it. And it's going to be a list of any adults, any primary caregivers or secondary caregivers will be listed here. So you can say it's signed by fall October. I'm going to attach it. And after I attach it, you'll get a message saying it's uploaded successfully. And you'll actually see the document down here. And any releases or participation agreements will actually have a little note next to them indicating that it's a PA or a release and what date it was done. If you click this link, it opens it up in a new window. And it's actually using this file opener thing. It's an encrypted display. It should, if you wanted to save it, you could. So if you want to save it, like a PDF down, you could. You just have to open it first. But really the purpose is to upload any attachments that you need. And I think people will probably come up with creative things that they might want to attach to this. So just be aware that's there. Another thing from this screen, this main screen, is the family info. If you click this, this is really certain fields that family visitors can edit on a family. So let's say their address changes, you would do that here. Let's say their phone number changes, you could do that here. If they have an email address. If it's a referral, you have these referral options down here. So it's been assigned to you, it's on your caseload, it's still a referral, but it's not actually an enrolled person yet. You could actually come down here and say, you decide they're not eligible, and then you're going to put a date to say, okay, this family, we're going to save this, and we're going to say this family is not going to be enrolled. The agency administrator should also check on the record too, because they see a lot more fields in here, and they can actually put if there's like a cease date on it, or like a cease status, like, okay, we basically gave up trying to reach this family. They see some of the same info, but agency administrators see a lot more. So let's say we want to change the visit frequency. We want to put their address in. Their state, county. So I'm going to save it. It's going to say it's updated the record. You hit OK, and it's going to pop out. If you actually come back in here, just to show you something, anytime you see this little H next to things, that means there's a history. So what that means is whenever you change certain things, like I just changed visit frequency from blank to outreach. If I click this little thing, you'll see, it's kind of weird, but it's saying it was changed to outreach on 10/6/2016. It's kind of weird that it's doing a 7. I'll check that. County changed from blank to Franklin. It'll say from and what it was changed from, and then what it was changed to. If there's nothing there, it'll just say from space to Franklin. So the first time you do things, it'll do that. If there's one already there, so we changed it to Franklin, I'm going to hit the back button up here. You'll notice on a lot of these screens, you can hit the back button, and it'll actually just bring you back to where you were. So there's a back button here, and then there's an X button here to close this whole pop-out window. So let's change the county again to, let's say, oh, no, I meant Lincoln County. So then I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to go back in there. And now we'll see if we hit any of these H's. See, now it says change from Franklin to Lincoln on 10/6. So you'll actually be able to see a change over time. It's really kind of like a log is what it is. We're trying to track the change over time on a lot of different fields. And we have a lot of new fields we're adding that we're going to do that on. So you'll see a lot more of these H's as time goes by. We have quite a list going. So just be aware of that. And you'll see that H on other screens. So like on the family member screen as an example. So let's go back to just family members quick again. So remember, you can click on any family members here. You can update their basic information and save. You can always hit the back button here to go back. We have a lot of these miscellaneous items down here. I mean, they're not miscellaneous, they're important, but they all kind of operate the exact same way. We'll save visits for last because that's a big ball of wax right there. So any goals you want to add, give it a title. You can say it's a goal for the family or an individual. You do a start date. You can do an abandon date. So don't give it an abandon date. Let's say it just has a start date. And then the types of goals. And I think these are similar to what you had in the old system. Goals for family members. We're going to say it's for seed apple. Overall goal status. And then we actually have it, when we originally started, it was 4 action steps. Once I started to look at the data and migrate it from the old system, I realized there were some people that had as many as 10 action steps, different objectives that they had. So I expanded this to be able to accommodate that. So some people actually, their data migrated over, you'll go into their goals and you'll see they actually have 10 items on any given goal, 10 objectives. So any of these that you type in, family will fix the broken bag. I know some of them, it looked like a lot of them relate to like family environment and things like that. Then when you actually start typing in one of these, you'll get more fields that automatically expand. We're going to set a target date for the 26th. We'll say it's an in progress. And then if you want to come in and update the status at different points, you can update the status date and progress notes. And you can do up to 10 of them. So when you save it, then you have a goal here, and it'll actually list right next to it the overall status. So completed. We'll say that actually should be in progress because we just created that. So we'll say this one's in progress. You can click and edit it at any time. You can add notes to it as you go along. You can add goals. Same with contacts. You can add a contact. So we'll say it's on 10/18 at 6:30 for 1 hour and 15 minutes. depending if you pick collateral or non-home visit, the fields beneath it will change. So if it's a collateral, it's going to ask you what collateral contact type it is, what agency, and remember this is that custom list of agencies for each, of referral agencies for each agency. So Andrew Scoggins is going to see different options here than say Knox or Lincoln. So you can actually change those, and then just some notes. And then after you click that, it's going to save it, and then again, it'll tell you what kind of visit it is. So collateral contacts and non-home visits. Referrals, these are referrals to outside agencies. So if I add a new referral here, date, time, type of contact, reason for referral, referral service type, referral agency. Again, this is the custom list of the agencies that you might refer out to. And just add that. And again, you can click it to come back and edit it. Same thing with CPS logs. Just as an example here, if I go to add a new goal and I hit save, if you get this red message button, this message thing, it's going to tell you what fields are required. So overall status is required, goal type, goal field, goal title, goal for. So if you actually come back and start filling these in, so I did 2 of those 4, and now I hit save, it's going to actively tell you which ones you're missing. And then it'll actually bring you back to the top. So I'm not actually going to finish that new goal because they're just for demo purposes. So we have one of the things you'll notice on this screen up here, the visits. This is obviously one of the most important parts of the system. We did, just as a note, I have a logging in here for visits now that actually sends me alerts if there's errors. So I might reach out to some of you at a different point and say, hey, what were you typing in this field or that field at certain times? And it's going to tell me what data you're trying to put in. So we went from probably a pretty good sized number of complaints on Tuesday, and then I worked Tuesday night to make some tweaks, and we got it down to very minimal yesterday, not 0, but minimal. And we just actually found a setting this morning. Ruth Burke sent me something about a visit not saving, and I did some investigation into it. She gave me really, really good details. And might I reiterate, give me as many details as you possibly can if you get an error. The more you give me, the easier it is going to be for me to fix it. It's not guesswork, you know? So Ruth told me the day it happened, the time it happened, what she was doing, how long she was logged in, some details about what screen she was on, and, you know, what the message she got and what happened after. And really, it was really good details. And I was able to, I think, figure it out. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure we figured out the problem. So Ruth, if you want to try again today, if you want to try and stress test it and leave it open for a long time and then save your visit. So anyway, when you're on here, you'll see visits. You'll see the last 5 visit dates scheduled by default. I only have 4 here. If you're on a family that has a lot of visits, it's just going to show the top 5, but if you click show all visits, it'll actually expand this list. This only has 4, so showing all visits only shows 4. So what you can do, let me find a family here that, oh, here we go. So these are the last 5 visits for the Sting family. If I hit show all visits, then it's going to expand the list so you can see all visits. And the reason we do that is to save real estate space, because we want you to really be able to see everything about your family on this one screen. So the reason we do that is 5 is just so you can see, all right, these are the last few visits you did, or the ones you have planned. If you plan to visit out, maybe for next week, it should show here, and it should float to the top. Any of these fields would get cut off if we showed every visit, so that's why we did that. So just click the show all visits to do that. If you're gonna do an existing visit, you can either go to the planning guide or the visit details. So on this one, here's the planning guide I did. And then if I hit back and then go to visit details, here's the visit details I did. So that just brings you to edit an existing visit. If you're going to do a new visit, you'll notice there's a 3rd option here. So if you do a new visit, the ideal way to do it is you know the visit's coming up, you're going to do the planning guide, you're done with the planning guide, and then the visit actually happens. Then you come back and you do the please start visit. I know there's scenarios, and we talked about this extensively, that a visit might happen really impromptu. It's not planned in any way. So in that case, you're going to click this unplanned visit option, and that basically bypasses the planning guide part. So typically what you'll do is you do the planning guide. When you save the planning guide, it'll bring you to the visit itself, or you can come back to the visit later. If you do unplanned visit, it's going to start a visit without the planning guide. So it'll bring you directly to the visit. So let's just do one really quick here. And again, save. It's going to tell you, oh, result of visit is required. And then depending on the result of visit that you put in, it may ask you different questions about what's required. So if it's an achieved visit, we need to also answer this question about documentation is complete, yes or no. If you say documentation is complete, it's going to check for all the really important fields to making sure that visit is properly documented. If you say visit is complete, no, it'll let you save, but the visit is not marked as complete. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. So I'm going to say okay there. So I said I started a visit. It was an unplanned visit. It's an achieved visit, obviously, because it was unplanned. So you went there and you actually achieved the visit. It wasn't a no-show. It wasn't rescheduled. Family didn't cancel. So now if we actually go back, and I'm going to show you a little trick here. If you ever want to jump back to the family without having to go hit the back button or go back through the screens, you can actually click the family name up here, and it'll pop out that dashboard. So it'll actually leave your visit open, and you can actually go, let's say you're in the middle of a visit and you want to go look up, you're documenting a visit and you want to go look up something about the family. You could click that, come in here. I want to see when their last referral was. Then you can actually come in here and click that. And then when you're done, X out, and you're still on your visit. It's more kind of like a reference purpose, but it's also good to just navigate back if you don't want to do anything else with it. So I'm going to just go back home here. So if I go to the Sting family, does anybody remember the date? Oh, this is the one I think I did. So the achieved visit. So I marked it as achieved, but I said no to it being completed. So if you come back here, it says 10/19, the visit was achieved, but you notice there's no checkbox next to it. There's no checkbox next to it because the documentation hasn't been completed. You want to make sure all your visits have checkboxes next to them. If a family cancels or doesn't show, scenarios like that where it's like, okay, the visit's done and achieved, and there was no documentation to complete because it just didn't happen. Nothing happened. In these scenarios, it'll check it off. So it's marking it as done automatically, even though there wasn't really anything to be done. So you just want to make sure you're always, either within 4 days, you're getting all your check marks on your current visits. So let's go back to that. So I'm going to go back again. I can go on this visit. I can go to the planning guide if I want, or I can go to the visit details. Even though it was an unplanned one, you could technically go do a planning guide for it. It's just when you're originally doing it, that's kind of a way to bypass it. So I'm going to say now the documentation on this visit is complete. And now it's going to tell me all the fields that are required. So now I'm going to go through and let's fill in some of these fields. Duration of visit is required. Type of visit, result of visit. I'm just kind of randomly jumping around here. We're picking services. Something to note when you're creating new visits, it should bring over the current services into any new visits you create. So it'll automatically go and say, okay, what did they answer on the last visit? And it'll pre-fill this field for you. If you guys find that helpful on other fields, let me know. I think we do it on the foundational pieces. So foundational, like focus of visit. If you do the pre-plan and you fill out the focus of visit for parent-child interaction, it should actually fill the text of what you did there. So then you can actually respond with notes to it. So you planned it, and then you come in here and you say, okay, I did that. And then here are my notes on what happened with that focus of visit. So it's kind of almost like a call and response sort of a thing. You plan it, and then you come back in, and then you respond to it. So I'm going to hit save again. Okay, I missed detailed visit narrative, well-child visits. So here's the visit narrative. I didn't fill anything in there. And then well-child visits. No. So now it saves. So now let's go back. Now you notice there's a checkbox next to it because all the documentation was completed for that achieved visit. And I mentioned earlier, the missing data report will actually check that. It'll say any visits that are more than 4 days old that are achieved, what is their documentation status? Is it complete? And it won't let you mark that yes, complete until you fill in all the fields to make it complete. So it's kind of a work in progress kind of a thing when you're working on a visit. Let's go back to the visit screen again. Let's do a planning guide first. So we did an unplanned one there, and now we're going to do one with a planning guide. So we're going to say this is a new visit. We're going to do these foundational items. We're going to do these assessments. Here's any comments you want to fill in, targeted domains, parenting behavior. I'm not going to fill in too much here. You hit save. If it's a new planning guide you're creating, when you hit OK, it should automatically bring you to the visit. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to do the visit at that point. It's just bringing you there if you're doing the planning guide like right as you're doing the visit. I'm not sure if that's necessarily a best practice. Typically, I think you do the planning guide ahead of time. And one of the things you can actually do is when you're done with a visit, there's an option way down here. Would you like to plan your next visit now? If you say yes to that, it'll actually save your visit, then bring you to a brand new fresh pre-plan for next time. You can then actually fill in and then save. And then when you go to do your next visit, so you might finish a visit with somebody on Friday, and you're saying, you're talking to them and say, when are we going to do our next visit? It's going to be next Thursday. If you were to actually be actively doing this while you're doing that, which you guys aren't at that point yet, but my hope is you will. If you said yes to this and then save, it's going to save your visit. Then it's going to bring you to a fresh pre-plan and say, okay, now we know we're going to meet next Thursday, so we have a scheduled date and time. So you can actually, it kind of goes a little more with your workflow of what you're doing. Probably not as helpful now that you're entering after the fact, but in the future, I think it will be. When you do a plan guide, you can actually print the plan here. So if there's a plan guide, if it's an unscheduled visit, unplanned visit, you won't see this. If it's a planned one, you'll see this. And if you click this, it's going to open a new window with a printer-friendly version. And it's only going to show you the fields that you filled out on the other screen. So if you didn't, there were like probably 50 text boxes on the other screen. We only filled in certain ones. It's only going to show the ones you have so as to save trees. We don't want people printing this out, because I know you guys actually print this out and then you'll actually write notes on it, and then you might take those notes and go back and document the rest of the visit afterwards. So that you can do it that way. And that planning guide is really matching the PAT model. So visits, I'm not going to spend too much time on visits. There is a lot of skip logic in this. There's a lot of behind the scenes thought process that goes into it. If you guys, after the meeting, if you guys want to go into resources and go to system training is really where I'm going to put documentation stuff as I come up with new methods or processes. So we just added something yesterday about how to transfer a family. So agency administrators can transfer families between agencies. And there's one there for that. If you click this visit screen logic, it breaks down how the visit screen figures out the skip logic. So it has to do a lot with, say, things like, if it's it's an achieved visit. If it's the first visit, there's certain questions it'll ask. So initial annual household income. It'll actually ask you this on all your families the first time you do a visit with them in the new system. And that actually feeds into the family picture. We saw that earlier that had the income level. So that's just in the next time you go do a visit, it shouldn't ask that anymore. Once you answer it, it'll stop asking the initial income, but it'll start asking you, was there a change in income? That was kind of a decision we made about being able to track the change over time. If there's no change, you're probably going to put no change almost every visit. But if there is one, you can actually say there was a change, and here's the reason why. Just a couple other things in here. Oh, postpartum physical exam. It'll actually ask you this until you answer it, kind of similarly. You'll see that in that visit logic thing as well. It really wants to keep asking you after a child is born if there was a postpartum physical exam date, and it'll keep asking you until you either answer it or decline it. And there's a declined option here. Breastfeeding, same exact idea. Once you say no to breastfeeding, it'll stop asking you. And then you'll also notice this actually will pre-fill the information on their health history. So if we go to the kid feeding, if you answer no to that on a visit, then it'll actually come back here and then fill this in. So there's a lot of little nuances like that. And if you have a question on them, please let us know, or we'll try and document it a little clearer now that we have the system up and running. If you ask if the ER visits, if you say yes to there being ER visits, then it's going to ask you the dates, and it'll ask you the reason and explain the ER visit. And then it'll actually give you an option to do a second one. And you don't have to do a second one, you could just do one. And I think it'll ask you up to 5 visits. If you say no, it won't ask you anything about any visits. So it's another one of those dynamic things. We're trying to save space on the screen. Kind of falling behind here a little with my, again, you can get to the tools on anybody by clicking up here, which basically brings you to their assessments. You can get to milestones on anybody up here. So on, it'll just show your index children. So if we go to the milestones on Junior Sting, and you can actually just fill in the dates here. And if you just click, it'll put in today's date. And this is really matches almost exactly what we have on the PAT milestones. I think there's some question about domain 5. We were under the understanding there is a domain 5, and Mary Lynn and I and Pam and Celine are trying to figure out, do we need domain 5? Because we don't think that's applicable anymore. But I'll let you know about that if we remove that. So any of these fields you can actually just fill in by clicking. There's also this option up here, this mark date thing. So let's say you don't want it to just fill in today's date. Let's say, oh, I met with them 3 days ago, but I'm doing it today. You don't want it to fill in today's date. So you can actually come in and change this to 10. And with any of these, I think it's most of them, you can actually pick from this little thing here. So now if I click here, you notice it's going to fill in that date. So it's kind of like an override. If you don't document the same day, then use this when you're filling in the milestones. It's just a time saver as you're working through these. So you don't have to type in dates. You just click, 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 click. It's almost like checkbox style. Then you hit save when you're done. And again, if you come back to this, we have a lot of other screens like this. They have these tabs. It's just to make it so there's a lot of data being collected, and we're breaking it up into different pieces in a logical way. If you come back here to health history, so let's look at the health history in Junior Sting. Again, we got that tab idea. Alternatively, when you're working through it, let's say you're doing the provider info on this child. So they're not eligible, they have a main care number. We're filling out all this information here, dental stuff, PCP. You can actually hit this next button down here, and it'll actually bring you to the next tab. So it goes a little more with the data entry flow as you're going through. Next. Do these questions. Next. Do these questions. Next. And if you go back there, you'll notice we got another H here. It actually tracks the immunization dates over time. And that's not right. CHHS. Yeah, that's the list. And then again, you hit save when you're done. It'll bring you back to the visit if you're in this. You can also do CPS log and goals from up here. It's the same idea as from that main screen. It's just a different way to get to it. This is one way, so you can get to things from the visit, but you can also get to things from in here as well. So if you click that CPS log, it's going to bring you to a new CPS log, just like you're doing here. Just kind of backing up a step here, these are also shortcuts. So you know how you had that red bar on the visit screen? These will also bring you to those screens. So the little medical bag is the health history, and the little tool is the assessments for each of these family members. So if you have somebody that's not like a primary caregiver or secondary caregiver or index child, and also if their agreement hasn't been signed, you will not see icons next to them. If they have a signed agreement and they're like a primary caregiver, secondary caregiver, or index child, then you'll see these little icons. And all these do is just bring you to another version of the screen. It's the exact same data. We're clicking the adult. So if it's an adult, you go to adult health history. If it's a child, you go to health history, which is really the child health history. And you can operate and save the same way. Let's just go back to visits quick here. So we've got the planning guide. Actually, I'm going to go to the visit details. So I think I might have actually covered everything at this point for the most part. I'm going to unmute everybody for a minute here and just check in. 1 second. All right, I've unmuted everybody. So now you can start yelling at me.
Hey, Eric, I've been recording all the questions that came through the chat.
Oh, great.
So
Thank you.
if you want me to read those off or something, you can go through those, or if people want to jump in with other things as well.
I appreciate that. And just for everybody on the phone, Matt is actually part of our IT department.
Yeah, hi, sorry.
You guys, I totally forgot that I hadn't introduced you. Matt will actually be doing some over time. We're still in the kind of development migration early stages of the system. Obviously, you guys all know that. Over time, Matt's going to learn the system as well as a backup to me. And really, he manages the help desk for our public health division. Not just the help desk. He does the server stuff. He also does programming and databases. He's kind of like a jack of all trades. So at some point, he'll be helping me out with this. So you will get to know Matt. He's very helpful and he's very friendly and courteous, and I think you guys will like him. Not that you can't still work with me. I'm going to be here all along. I made the system and I committed to you guys, obviously. So Matt will be helping me out. So let me, Matt, is there a certain question that came up repeatedly or a certain theme?
Actually, a lot of them seemed pretty different things.
Okay. All right. Let me look at the chat
Yeah. Would it be helpful if I just read them off and you answer them? Or?
Yeah, that would be great if you got a list in front of you instead of me.
Yeah.
Matt, it might be helpful to mute everybody because there's a lot of this.
Yeah,
I'll
Eric,
mute
can you
everybody.
mute them again?
I'm going to mute everybody, and Matt's going to read me questions, and I'm going to answer them best I can. So we got about 20 minutes left, so I'll answer as many as I can, and then we can come back around on them. And it won't be the only training. We'll be doing more. So.
Yeah, Eric, can you mute them?
Sure. All right, muted.
Awesome, great. I don't get to do that because I'm not the